8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Is that not 10 seconds? I'll refresh here on my phone. So let me know when we're live.
We're live.
We are?
I got the notification.
Oh, how cool. Okay. Well, I guess we're live. That's wonderful. So we're using a new technology today to go live, and I'm super excited about it. So welcome to everybody that's able to tune in today to Talent Tuesday Live with Leah. I have an extraordinarily special guest today. I have known her for quite some time as my coworker, Miss Marissa Hooker. Marissa, thank you so much for agreeing to join me today.
Of
I
course.
I really appreciate it. I know you were a lizard.
Here.
Were you hesitant?
I was a little hesitant, but you don't make me do this very often, so.
And for I didn't make you do it,
That
right?
is true. You don't make me do it, but you
I
have
I
asked me to do it.
asked you and you were like, "Yeah, okay." Well, I don't think you were that excited, but you were excited. Okay. So today we're going to talk about effective job postings and positive candidate experience. So I'll wait for a couple more people to log in. Thank you for those of you who are already joining. And I think this is how we're going to try to do the live Talent Tuesdays from now on. We'll just go live directly on the HR Maximizer media page. So I think this is going to work better. And I wanted to go ahead and introduce Marissa. Marissa is our HRIS specialist and talent acquisition specialist here at HR Maximizer. She started with Ascend HR Corp 6 years ago. That's a long time. We've worked together for 6 years. And she started out as kind of like an assistant, and didn't really want to do recruiting at all. Didn't like it, but she's really good at it. And she actually has taken a lot of classes and different and researched a lot of different areas of talent acquisition. And she's really become a specialist in managing the back ends of all of our systems. So she has become an HRIS specialist. So Marissa also resides here in Houston, Texas. We no longer have an actual office, so we are virtual. How do you feel about virtual work? Do you like it?
I love it. It's really nice, not necessarily because with where we are all based in Houston, it was really hard to have a convenient location.
That's true. Yeah.
And so now getting to work from home, I feel like I'm a lot more productive just because I'm not spending so much time traveling or it's just from that time I'm working, I can get it done, but it's also not so rigid to where I can't still live.
That's true. I do you miss the office at all?
Not really.
Whoa, okay. I thought you would say maybe like lunch times or something like when we would.
Lunchtimes were always a plus. I love our lunchtimes. But as far as like the actual office itself, it was just kind of
Yeah,
it
I
was
mean,
good to get out the house, but
we had a nice office, but
yeah.
we hadn't been there since March 17th. Oh my gosh, tomorrow's March 17th. We had not been there for a full year and our lease went up. And so we decided as a company to go fully remote.
We did it.
And what's interesting about our company is that we have people in other states and also in other countries. So we had a headquarters office here in Houston, but there was only ever like maybe 4 to 6 people max in the office at any one time. So we're trying this out and I think it's working pretty well. I definitely do miss team lunches. And then like just some of the, when you're working on a project or something and you need like a quick assist on something, and you're like, hey, I have questions. It's not the same type of interaction that you would have in the office, like having to call or do it through Slack. But I think we're getting used to it.
Yeah, for sure. I think even once it's safe again, if it's safe again, like having that occasional like meetup, especially whenever we're collaborating on projects, would be helpful. But for
Mhm.
the day-to-day work, a lot of it can be done remotely, which I think is a huge plus with HR Maximizer, because we're not, it's getting done in a more efficient manner,
Oh
even
yeah, I would agree.
though we do collaborate so much.
Yeah, I think our production is a lot better, and I think that we've really honed in on a lot of our processes, and we're doing really well working from home. And what I'm seeing in a lot of articles that I'm reading and on the news, a lot of businesses are finding the same thing, that they thought it would be like a massive failure to send everybody home during COVID. And this is working extraordinarily well. So it'll be interesting to see how the future of work changes. If some companies will say, you know what, we're going right back in to the office, just like it used to be, or if there's other companies that will say we'll do like a hybrid model. I've seen a lot that are going fully remote, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So I wanted to say hello. Thank you guys so much. I see that Ross is here. Thank you, Ross, for being our fan today. He says he doesn't miss commuting at all, and I agree with that. I used to commute an hour each way, and it was a lot of driving. Joanne says hello. Gwen Chambers is here watching today. Ross did say that he does miss the one-on-one interaction for sure. So, well, let's get started then. So again, my guest today is Marissa Hooker. She's also my co-worker, and I've been working with Marissa for 6 years now, which is crazy that we've worked together for so long. It's been fun. We've done a lot of different stuff throughout the history, or the, I guess, development of our organization. We've pivoted a couple of times. And so it's been really fun to to pivot and change course. It's also been really difficult, but I think through that you have definitely a really unique perspective, because you've seen and done a lot of different disciplines within HR and within talent acquisition. So we can go ahead and get started. And if anybody has any questions for Marissa today from the audience, please go ahead and just type them in, and I will make sure that she sees them and she can answer. I wanted to start with effective job postings. So you have become really, really well versed and good at doing job postings and getting candidates to them. What is one of the biggest mistakes you think companies and HR departments make when they post jobs online?
I think one of the biggest mistakes is just having a huge block of information right off the bat. It's not, the candidate isn't going to sit there and read through every single detail. They want to be able to see things in a short, concise manner, to just be able to look at it, be like, okay, this is the job, this is what I'll be doing. Great. A lot of job postings I'll see are just this huge block of information. It may not even be like full paragraph or full sentences put together.
Uh-huh.
Those little like snippets of a sentence, but they're not broken up in a way that makes it easily readable. And
Okay.
that turns a lot of candidates away. So whenever you break up the information to where the candidate can even just hop around and know exactly where to find the information they're looking for on your job post, that really appeals to them.
Right. And you've created basically like our standard operating procedure for how we post. And you have a very specific way that we post. And it's, you tell about the organization, about the job, and you give a little bit more real life details. You're not using the HR job description. You're actually recreating the job description and creating a post. You're selling it to a candidate. You're providing an employee value proposition. And I think that one of the biggest things that you do that's so interesting is that you not only bullet out the benefits, but you bullet out like all of the sections to highlight the most important parts. And why is that? Like, why do you do that? Why do you format jobs the way that you do?
Um, a lot of it comes down to just how candidates approach things now. I think in general, people have a much shorter attention span than they used to.
Yeah.
And so they want to be able to look at something and immediately know what they're looking for. And so having all of those different bullet points, it makes it really easy for the candidate. And it tends to attract them more so whenever they can look at something and quickly get an overview, because a lot of times candidates don't need to know every single minute detail before applying to the job. That's what they want with a job offer. So whenever they're applying, having something that's brief, easily read, that is what's really going to draw them in, because they look at it, they know, okay, this is what they're looking for, this is what I'll have to do, this is what I get out of it, this is my hours. And those are some of the most important things that a candidate is searching for. And whenever it's right there and it takes them 10 seconds to read it, that is a huge attraction for them. And so
When they don't have to like go search other places on the website to try to find like simple
Right.
information.
Right. When it's all right there, whenever they don't have to go to your organization's website to find out your hours, even that's something that a lot of job postings are missing.
Oh,
It,
like what the working hours will be, like what the
right.
shift is.
A
Oh,
lot of candidates,
okay.
they may just say day shift or nights, but they don't know exactly when that's starting, what the expectation is there. So having that in the job posting itself and where the candidate doesn't have to go searching for it, that is, we've gotten a bit of feedback about that and how um, the candidate when they apply.
That makes a lot of sense. So, what about benefits? I know that some organizations only list like two or three benefits, but do you think it is better to be like very specific about the type of benefits that you offer?
Oh, for sure. I think that the more specific you can get with your benefits, the better. Of course, there are some things that you may not, that are a benefit with your organization, but you may not advertise up front.
Hmm.
But the more that you can put on there, the better, because the candidate, they want to know what they're getting out of this. Like, yes, they need a job. Yes, they're looking for a job,
Right?
obviously. But they want to know what makes your organization unique, why they should choose you out of all these other options that they may have. So being able to be specific about the jobs that you're post or sorry, the benefits you're offering on your job post, it can be the deciding factor for a candidate. So
Right.
knowing that maybe you offer free parking or the salary or even just something small. Like we have one um, organization we work with, they offer volunteer opportunities.
Okay.
And
And
being
they're
specific about what those involve, that has been a huge appeal to some of their applicants.
and they don't have to take PTO to do volunteer work because it's
Right.
already it's a benefit in their organization. That makes sense. Um, I always see like generous PTO and like they're very vague. In certain circumstances, is it better just to be upfront and honest, like starting 3 weeks PTO or 2 weeks PTO, or do you want to be vague and like get the candidate in and then tell them what they get?
So for that, it kind of depends because there are some organizations that offer a fantastic PTO um, option. And so if you can specify like 3 weeks or 4 weeks right off the bat, do
That's
that.
huge. Yeah.
But if it's something a bit less where maybe your organization can't afford to offer something like that, then yeah, be vague. Say it's generous or say, or highlight another feature of your benefits that may be more appealing
Mhm.
because you really want to be able to draw the candidate in. And being vague, that's not going to draw them in.
Okay, so this is a question about like how we're all going, or a lot of organizations are going remote or hybrid remote. Is it a benefit if it's remote or like flex scheduling, or is that going to suddenly move from the benefits up to like what's included in the job? Like it's going to move up and say this position's 50% on site, 50% remote. Uh, or will it still be in benefits for a while, do you think?
I think it'll still be in benefits for a while yet as organizations are adjusting because yes, we're a year into the pandemic.
Mhm.
And so some companies have adjusted to that where now it's the expectation, not a reward. But
Mhm.
I do think that going forward in the future, it's going to be less of a benefit just because a lot of people or a lot of specialties are just going to expect that they get to work from home because now historically we have the evidence that that job can be performed effectively from home
That
and
makes
there's
yeah.
no need for it to be done in office. So depending on what your organization specializes in or is offering, it may be where it's not necessarily considered a benefit.
Right. So last week I was talking to Katrina and Naveen, and they're both in Europe. And we were talking about how they both work in like tech recruiting. And what they're seeing is that a lot of their jobs that are 100% on site, they're not getting as many applications. And there's people that are just saying, like, if you're not offering remote work, I'm not interested. Do you think that a lot more people, like a lot more candidates, are going to almost require like at a certain level, I mean clearly not your entry level, but you're like mid and high and your executive level, are they going to just say we know this works and I want to work remote?
I definitely think that's a big possibility. I know even here already there have been some, I know somebody personally who has been working from home for over 10 years because
Oh,
they
okay.
are at that higher level position.
Mhm.
So of course, for an entry level, you can't come in demanding
You don't get to
work from
dictate,
home.
right?
Yeah, you don't get to demand that you work from home at an entry level. But if you're higher up, if you have that experience in the background to, sort of prove that you know what you're doing, I think it's absolutely reasonable to expect people to want that off the bat. It's not going to be necessarily a negotiable point after after a while.
Right. So, okay. So for an HR department or recruiter that's watching right now and they're really struggling to get candidates to apply to their job posting, like maybe they're part of that like whole post and pray thing where they're just like, put it out there, they will come.
Maybe.
What's, yeah, it doesn't work that way. um, give them to help attract candidates to their job postings, whether they're on free job boards or on their own job board. What's one like tip that you can give to anyone like across the board?
Um, Simplify your application process. That is probably the hardest thing. If you go through a job application and it takes you more than 5 minutes, you're
Right,
not you're running your candidates off.
right. Appcast did a big study on that, and they said that if your application process takes more than 5 minutes, you lose 70% of active candidates. So then you're basically left with 30% of the people who were going to apply that actually finish the application. And in that 70%, I mean, I can't even imagine how many well qualified, like wonderful candidates you're losing because your process is just like antiquated and not working for them.
For sure. I think that having that long application process is so unnecessary nowadays with so much being available online. And of course, as a recruiter, do want to collect as much information as you can. But at the very beginning, if you're struggling to get applicants, simplify that. You need the bare minimum of information to get somebody in the door. And
Yeah.
then as you're actually interviewing, as you're continuing in your hiring process, that's when you can collect the more information that is needed because now you've got them interested. They've clearly expressed that. Now you can get more information. So get their name, email, phone number, a resume.
Right. Right.
That's that's the
So
bare minimum needed for an applicant.
Gwen Chambers is watching right now, and she agrees, that a lot of candidates and people in general are bombarded by a lot of noise via social media, radio, newspapers, TV. And it's great to hear that you're changing your approach to grab one's attention in the first few seconds. What are your thoughts on companies who still require candidates to fill out lengthy application forms?
I think that for some companies it works. They have that name brand, they have that reputation. So if a
Mhm.
candidate really wants to work there, they'll go through that process. But it might be a little begrudging because now you've got this antiquated process. It takes 15 minutes to apply for one job. They go to apply for another, and it's the same application process again. So eventually, you're going to start losing that draw of your name, and you're going to run those candidates off too. And if you don't have that reputation right off the bat, if you're a smaller organization and you're requiring this long application process, you may be missing out on some great candidates because either they get frustrated and they drop off on their own, or something comes up and they get distracted because, like Gwen mentioned, there's so much available today and
Yeah,
information constantly being thrown at us. So maybe they get a notification and they leave and
right.
they get to ever come back, or they leave and your application process resets and they're just like, nope, I'm not doing this over again.
Right. And I think that one of the things that we hear from candidates all the time is in some of the bigger systems that they apply to, the applicant tracking systems, they say, it asked me to upload my resume and then fill out like another resume, basically. Like why if if we're so advanced in technology, like why isn't it autofilling? Why do I have to give the same information over and over and over? And isn't there a better or easier way to do this process? And there definitely is. And I would encourage people to, if you're not happy with the application process that you're able to offer right now to your candidates, talk to your ATS provider. Talk to them and say, can we make this easier? Can we make this shorter? Can we maybe move the actual formal application to a later point in the process? Because we're losing candidates on our long form application. And then also, We know statistically speaking that like 80% of candidates see job postings on their phones. So if they're trying to like do a super long, attach a PDF and then fill out an entire application that could take like 10 to 15 minutes on their phone, they're just not going to do it. So you're still losing candidates. Gwen she asked who conducted the study, and it's called Appcast, Gwen. And I can give you that study or put a link into it in the comments. Maybe Joanne can do that for us. So moving on to a positive candidate experience, clearly like the application and the job posting is part of that positive candidate experience. What other elements are super important from your perspective in creating like the best top-notch candidate experience?
I think two really important things are the communication time frame
Mm-hmm.
that you as a recruiter are giving to the candidate. If a candidate applies and they have to wait 2 weeks to even know if they're being considered, it's not a great feeling. And even if they've phoned in, maybe they've even done a Zoom interview or a video, or they've actually come to your organization and then they never hear from you again, that is not a great feeling for.
That's the worst. That's terrible.
And so even if it's a no, let the candidate at least have that no on hand. Let them know that, okay, thanks, we enjoyed meeting you, but you're no longer being considered. Or on the other hand, we loved meeting with you. What's the next step? So keeping the candidate up to date on their application, I think, is a huge contributor to their experience and making that a positive experience, because even that rejection can still be positive because they're not left dangling on a hook.
Yeah, we've been taught by Rollis is that a quick no is better than a super long maybe or like a 6 week maybe or no. If we know right away that the candidate's not going to move forward, there's no reason to keep them on the hook, right?
Right.
We can keep them engaged and keep them in our pipeline for possibly another job, but a quick no is respectful and helpful to people. And also a quick yes, like, yes, we see your application. We are going to keep on moving forward and we will be in touch. And one of the other things that I know, one of the recruiters that works with us that has like over 35 years of experience, what she asks candidates is what they prefer for their method of communication. And I remember that she was a little bit hesitant at the beginning. She was like, no, I don't want to be texting people, because she was so used to phone calls and emails. But what she's found is that if you let them choose the method, they're more likely to respond. So if they say, yeah, text works way better for me, then they're going to respond. But if they don't want you texting their phone, they just want emails, then you go with that. And so I think that allowing candidates to help guide the process and help them kind of choose their own adventure and experience definitely helps make it a better, more positive experience from their point of view.
I would definitely agree with that. I think having that, and again, it all comes down to that communication. Like even in-house HR Maximizer, we have where it's the candidate is, once they apply, they are going to hear from one of us within 3 days, 3 business days. And that, I think, is a huge draw for a candidate, knowing that whether it's rejection or, hey, we still need to kind of look over your qualifications, but we are looking,
Mm-hmm.
I think, is a huge plus. And then the second factor that I was going to discuss earlier, I think it really comes down to, oh my goodness, my mind just blanked. I had
It's
uh,
okay.
it comes down to making sure that they're the process is personalized, almost like the recruiter isn't just calling to get it done with, but they actually took the time to kind of look over their resume, see what their history and background was. And so you're not having, so you maybe you do have that long application process, okay, and you still got this candidate in, and now you're calling them and you're talking to them and they have to talk you through every single detail on that resume. That is
Yeah.
terrible, because now not only did I have to spend 15 minutes filling out your application, I had to hunt down the PDF on my phone and upload it to your system. And now you want me to talk you through every single detail? You didn't look at it.
Right.
So I think being sure that you kind of, even if it's just 5 minutes before you call this candidate, look over their resume, look over what they actually put in their application and any previous communication you've had, if because we do get repeat applicants.
Right.
So go back to your previous notes on that applicant, see what they said last time, see how they've progressed. Maybe it's been 2 years since they applied with your organization. Go back and see the progress they've made in those 2 years. And that is
And
going to
talk about that.
and talk about that and see, okay, we noticed that you applied 2 years ago, you weren't qualified at that then. What have you done in these past 2 years?
Hmm.
Having that recognition for the
That level of
candidate.
personalization, like, oh,
Yeah.
you actually recognize that I'm a human being and that I did apply one time before, and you have the information in the notes. And I think that you're right. I think that that creates a more personalized experience, and you feel like you're a human and you're important rather than just another number or like another applicant and you've got to get through a big spreadsheet or
Yeah,
something.
you're not just another paper in the box.
That's true. Okay. So Rollis has a quick question about workflows. So, do you recommend just using one workflow for all jobs, or is there specific circumstances where you would use a different recruiting workflow?
I think the simpler the better, honestly. I think HR and recruiting tends to get overcomplicated. It seems like every single job or type, it needs its own workflow, it needs its own communication, when really the simpler the better. So if you can have one workflow that works for everything, that's great. But maybe it's your entry level jobs have one specific workflow, your executive jobs have another, your mid level.
Hmm.
But the simpler the better, because then it's a more streamlined process for the recruiter, because you know exactly what each stage represents. And okay, so I've done this with the candidate, they'll go here, and now I'm waiting on this feedback, so it'll go here. And if you can, if your ATS allows you to automate everything, if you can, so much easier. And it's also really helpful on the candidate side, because if something is automated, then on your end you don't have to worry about forgetting a step. The candidate is getting that communication, they're getting that email, they are getting a reminder, they know what's going on. And so I do think that a simpler workflow is better. You don't need 8 million steps in your hiring process or in your
Right.
recruiting workflow. That is just too many. If you, this, the shorter the workflow, the shorter the process for the candidate. And of course, that's different. Of course, an entry level has far fewer steps versus
Right.
your upper management. Um, but if it, the easier it is, the better.
Yeah. No, and I think that one of the things that has helped you and us as a company a lot is that we've used the same ATS, and we've used a couple of different ATS systems in the past and at the same time. But one of the things that I think a lot of people forget is that there's new updates all the time. And our particular ATS that we use, they come out with new features all the time. And taking the time to watch those new tutorials and learn more about how your system can be optimized is super important, because we'll go help a client sometimes and they'll be like, oh yeah, we just do this and then export it to a spreadsheet because we don't know how to do that. But if you can take the time to absolutely understand how your system works, how your recruiting system works, and the areas that you can automate and the areas that you can make this process more seamless for yourself and for candidates, it's going to speed up your process. One, it's most likely going to help the communication because you can automate some of those communication, like the different communication points that you're having with candidates. And it's going to create a more effective process for everyone, including your hiring managers. So, and those are all really important keys. And one of the things that I know you've been doing is you kind of do deep dives and send out to our clients like monthly updates. Like, hey, this is a feature of the system that you might not be using, but you should. And I think that what are the things that you have seen most beneficial in doing some of those deep dives, or that you have learned about?
I think one personally is our ATS offers a rating system for candidates. And that is so helpful, especially if your hiring managers are separate from HR, depending
Okay.
on your
The
organization.
position. Yeah.
for the position. So if you can go in and as the recruiter, you've spoken to this person, you have a knowledge of who their personality, their background and experience, what they're looking for from your organization, and you're able to rate them like 1 star, 3 stars, 5 stars, and having that be a how do I put it? But it there's a standard there for
Okay.
what each star represents, and having that standardized and putting that on the applicant's profile, and then sending it on to the hiring manager so they get a quick look and they're like, oh, this candidate is only 3 stars, I'll take a look, but maybe we hold off. Oh, this candidate is 5 stars, I want to talk to them right away, let's set this up. And that has really, I think, helped both in-house and the organizations we're assisting, and seeing how that has really streamlined their process. And you can even see where in spots where the hiring process may have stalled previously, implementing the rating system has kind of helped speed things along, because now the hiring manager takes a look and is like, oh, okay, this is a top candidate, let's go ahead and get them in. And
Right.
so things are moving a bit quicker.
And most ATS systems, like there is a way to rate candidates, but sometimes it's really complicated or sometimes it's too simplistic. But creating, like you said, like a standard around it, like we do this for all candidates, and we're only going to move on to the in-person interview with like our highest level, our 4 star and our 5 star. And that's our standard operating procedure across the board. And there's specific reasons behind why you. And I think that if you can do that across the board, then you start creating a lot of data that you can look back and say, you know, over the past 2 years, we've hired this many people and they were, this rated level of candidate. And or your repeat customers or your your repeat candidates, and kind of you can create a lot of data and a lot of really useful analytics and insight into why your candidates are moving forward in the process or they're not, or who you're hiring and why you're hiring them. And then also how your whole entire team is performing, how your candidates are moving through the process for your recruiters, how your recruiters are rating people, how your hiring managers are moving through the process as well. So Gwen wanted to know, what are some of your thoughts, or what are your thoughts on using assessments as part of the hiring process? Maybe, or i.e. strength finders, Myers-Briggs, DISC profile. So do you want to go first on that? I have some thoughts on this, but you can go ahead.
Okay. I think you probably have more thoughts than I do on this.
Okay.
But I think that it can be helpful to a certain extent, but there's a level of personal bias there in those, whether it's on the candidate side as they have their own perception of themselves versus the hiring manager or the recruiter, and they have their personal bias on what they think is the right personality type or strengths needed for this. And it may be that somebody without those qualities might actually do very well in the position, and you're limiting yourself by adhering so strictly to those.
Right.
So, Leah.
Okay, well, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I think that personality type indicator tests can be incredibly useful to a certain extent. I think that there is definitely a margin of error in them, like in any Myers-Briggs or Enneagram or DISC profile. If you are making decisions solely based on your personality profile traits, I think that you're doing something wrong. Definitely. I think it can be used as part of the equation, but I think that you need to go back and look at the reason that those were instituted in the first place. The Myers-Briggs is a very old test, and it was created as part of like the movement of industrial psychology and putting people together that work best together, right? And creating leaders, like putting leaders in positions that will succeed, and then putting staff in positions that will succeed. And there's like this huge matrix of why you would put like an ENTJ and an INTF with together or whatnot. But a lot of it is based on more of like industrial and like very process orientated work. And in today's world, that might not be the most beneficial system to use. I think that there's some newer type indicators that work a little bit better. But also, like you said, people answer questions differently based on what they think you want to know. So standardized testing is even standardized personality testing isn't always going to get you the most accurate sample of what that person is or does, and it might not be a perfect indicator of future performance. I think that the best indicator of future performance is actually past performance. And that's just my personal opinion. I think that they're very useful to a certain extent. We don't base decisions off of them. Some of our clients ask for candidates to have personality assessments or, different assessments throughout the process. And as long as it's a piece of the puzzle, that's fine, but it cannot be the full decision-making tool in candidate selection. So that was a really long answer, but that's what I think. So to wrap up for today, Marissa, if somebody's having a tough time, they're losing candidates in the process right now, or it's not going well, they're not hearing back from candidates, or they're falling off, what would you recommend to an HR department or a recruiter that's having a really hard time creating a positive candidate experience?
I think I would suggest simplifying where you can and changing things up. Don't just stick with something that's clearly not working. And then another positive feature is HR Maximizer offers consulting. And so if they are looking for help, I mean, we have that available. We've had tons of experience. We've tried it all.
We've failed at a lot of things. That's true.
And it hasn't worked, and some of it has. And so from that, we've gotten to learn and grow from that. And so even any HR department, they can start testing, even try something out, work, move on to something else until you're starting to see what is really going to work for your organization and what is going to bring those candidates in and keep them engaged.
That's wonderful advice. Thank you for plugging HR Maximizer there. For me, I think one of the biggest things that I didn't realize is that when people post jobs, they don't go apply for them. And I think that's a huge missed opportunity to understand what the job application experience is like for your candidates. So when we post jobs, we go in and randomly, like, we don't apply for every single job on every single platform, but we have a system where, it's a quality control mechanism, basically. And myself, our boss, some of the other people in the organization, we go through on a monthly basis and apply for jobs. And you can delete them. I know it throws off your numbers just a little bit on your ATS backend, and Marissa gets upset. So we don't do too many. But
as long as you let me know, it's okay.
But I think it really is an important part of the process as a recruiter, as somebody that's putting jobs out there for people to apply to. Do it yourself too. See how the process works, because that is where you can spot a lot of inefficiencies and places where you're probably going to lose candidates. If it's tough and frustrating for you and you know what to expect, just think about a candidate that has no idea what to expect and going through this process. It's definitely going to be tough and frustrating for them as well. So simplify, make it a better process, always communicate, and call us if you need help, right? Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you everybody that logged in and asked questions. I really appreciate it. And we will see you next week on Talent Tuesday Live with Leah. But thank you so much, Marissa. Thank you for being my guest today. I think that you have a ton of great knowledge about how to use applicant tracking systems and how to treat candidates really well, and obviously how to post great jobs. So thank you.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. All right. Bye-bye, guys. Jonathan, just let us know when we're done. I'm like getting like shaky. I don't feel good at all. I know.
You should probably just be done for the day.
I know.